You're listening to the Word Slinger Podcast, episode 009, Digital Marketing with Jay Winkler. This episode of the Word Slinger Podcast is brought to you by Citadel Omnibus. That's my new book, collecting all three of the Citadel books in one volume for the very first time. You can check it out on Amazon.com or find it on my website at kevintumlinson.com/books. I appreciate all reviews. I love you very much.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tumlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
So this week, and hi everybody, this week is a little different. My guest this week is a little different because normally when I bring someone to you guys, they are someone I've had contact with more than just a couple of times in the past. Frequently they're people I've known for years, or they are people that I have worked with or have followed in some way. And, that's not always going to be the case. I've got guests coming up that I haven't worked with and don't know particularly well, but I have followed in some respect. But this week, and sorry, I keep doing that swallowing thing again. This week, I am talking with Jay Winkler, who is the principal and creative director for Idea Lab Digital Marketing. And that is it's an agency that's located in Morristown, New Jersey. And if you listen to the show for the past few weeks, I have actually mentioned New Jersey quite a bit, and I've gone on and on about how just stunningly beautiful that place turned out to be, despite my expectations. And I mentioned this in the podcast, but I live in the South. I live in the deepest South you can get, frankly. I mean, I'm like a couple of feet away from being knee deep in the Gulf of Mexico here in Missouri City, just south of Houston, Texas. And I grew up in Wild Peach, which you've never heard of, or if you have heard of, you're probably from there, which was even closer to the Gulf of Mexico. So, I grew up with a perception of the North, especially Northeast, as being full of rude people, always angry, always in a hurry, very stereotypical from things you see on television and in the movies. And that was not my experience here at all. And in fact, Morristown, New Jersey, right there on the main street, is this gorgeous neighborhood. It is the main street that all other main streets try to be. When you go to these town centers, like I live near the Sugar Land Town Center here in Texas, they try to recreate this environment, and usually not successfly. So, and they get, sometimes they get close, but this is the authentic, real deal. And, my wife and I went to a Starbucks that we thought was in an old fire station. Turns out it was a mechanic's garage or something, redone, repurposed. But, we went and hung out there. And as we're walking out, I see this sign that says Idea Lab. And I believe it might have actually said digital marketing under it. I don't remember exactly. But I see that, and I'm not afraid of approaching anybody anytime. I'm a little weird that way, but there was a contrast in seeing that sign on that street, and I'm not sure why it struck me so much, but it did. And I knocked on the door, and I met Jay first thing. He answered the door himself. He led me upstairs without question. And here I am, a kind of hairy, sweaty guy at the time because I hadn't shaved my beard in a couple of weeks, and we had been kind of marching around, so I wasn't, I could have looked better. And I abandoned my wife on this street. But, he shows me his place, and it's very cool, very hip. And, after talking to the guy for a while, I realized, he's got a story. This is the place itself was a story just waiting to be told. So that's what I wanted to capture this week, and I think we did. And we also cover some topics that are marketing related, but also oddly, not oddly, I think that marketing has a component to it that relates to how just life works in general. I think that's why marketing works. So the story that evolves over the next 40 minutes is one of, we talk about branding, we talk about, successes and even failures and comebacks and a lot of interesting stuff. But in general, I think you're going to get a lot out of this. Jay's an interesting guy, and he was very fun to talk to. I like him a lot, actually, and I was really impressed with how together everything is for him and for that company. They've weathered some tough times and come back strong, and they're located in, like I said, a gorgeous place. I think that would be a really uplifting place to work. So I'm not going to hold you back any longer. You go ahead, take a listen, and if you have questions, first of all, you're going to want to check out Idea Lab Digital Marketing online at idealabdigital.com. If you have questions, I can pass them along for you. Excuse me. Sorry, that was really unprofessional. If you have questions, I can definitely pass them along for you. Just go check me out at. We're going to try the website this week, okay? We're going to see if it's working. Let's go to wordslingerpodcast.com. At the very least, you can get through to the placeholder page on my site at kevintumlinson.com/podcast. Go check me out at wordslinger.com, wordslingerpodcast.com. Sorry, I do not own wordslinger.com yet. If you go to wordslingerpodcast.com, you can now leave me a voicemail directly from your computer. How's that for cool? There's a little button, a little tab right there on the right-hand side of the screen. Click that, talk directly to your computer. It gives you a little set of instructions, everything you need to do. And you can leave me a voicemail that I will happily play on air. And I will also forward along to Jay if you've got questions. So other than that, if you go straight on through to the landing page, you can always send me an email as well. So I'm using the form there. Pulling all that together, sorry for the mess. You know how it goes. Cobbler's kids have no shoes at this point. So without further ado and no more delay, here is Jay. I almost called him Jay Walker. I'm really sorry, Jay. Here is Jay Winkler of Idea Lab Digital Marketing. Hi everybody, this is Kevin Tumlinson, the Word Slinger, and I'm with Jay Winkler, who is the Principal and Creative Director for Idea Lab Digital. And you can find these guys at idealabdigital.com. I found them in Morristown, New Jersey, which was, I have to say, was a surprising trip for me because it was my first time in that area. I'd never been to South Jersey before, and it just turned out to be gorgeous there. So then I just randomly introduced myself to you, Jay. So it was great meeting you that day, actually.
And likewise.
Yeah. So you are unusual in that respect because most of the time when I get someone on the show, I've either known them for a short time or at least a while anyway, or I've done business with them or something. But I just saw your sign while it's kind of, my wife and I were just walking out of the Starbucks there next door to you, which is kind of a cool Starbucks. It's in like an old firehouse, right?
It's an old hardware store, actually.
Oh, is it?
I believe is probably not as old as the building that we're located in, but
Yeah.
it's probably pushing 100 years old.
It's a gorgeous street there. That's like the every one of these fake downtown areas in the country is trying to be that street.
That is well said. So in 2007, our little town of Morristown was, I think, voted best place to live by Money Magazine. We made that list, and I really think it had a lot to do with the charm of the downtown Main Street area, as well as just kind of a great cross section of people that live here and different, walks of life and different income levels. It's just a great little place to live and to run a business.
I did not meet a single person in that area that was not just overwhelmingly nice to me, which was kind of refreshing. I mean, I come from South Texas. Everybody's supposed to be nice here, but that's not the way it always works out. But we have a sort of weird prejudice down here that anything north of the Texas borders gets really rude and everyone's angry and it's all, hyper busy all the time. But that was not my experience. So
Well,
good work, guys.
oh, thanks. Well, I can't take much credit as I'm a transplant to Morristown, New Jersey, and my wife and I actually stumbled upon this town when we were on a weekend trip away from our busy life in Manhattan when we
Yeah.
worked in New York, and decided it was a great place to start a business and raise a family.
So that brings us around to Idea Lab, which was a very cool, very hip looking place to me. I immediately noticed the sign out front, and it just seems like an unusual spot for that sort of agency. Why don't you tell me a little about how that got started and why you picked Morristown for your headquarters there?
Yeah, well, I'd like to take full credit for it, but there's a bit of a legacy that existed before I arrived. So my former business partner founded Idea Lab back in 1996 after he sold his former agency, Palin and Sweeney Advertising, which at one time was one of the largest ad agencies in New Jersey. And Jack decided to move the headquarters to Main Street in Morristown. And I think he loved the contrast of, kind of a hip agency on Main Street, USA. And when I moved to the area and joined Jack, and, I loved it for all the same reasons. Great place to be creative and feel at home and comfortable. There's enough stress in our business with deadlines to be, in a place where it's just hustle and bustle all the time.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and that's you've definitely got an area there where I don't know how close you live to your offices, but I mean, if you're within walking distance, I'd say that's probably the best location of all time.
well, I'm not, well, I'm not quite walking distance. But I am pretty spoiled. I'm only about a little less than 3 miles from the office,
Oh
so
yeah,
I can ride my bike if I wanted to, and I have done that on nice days. But yeah, I think work environment, especially in today's, rapid on the go business world, is we and my staff, we wanted the feeling of like being at home,
yeah.
but we also felt it's important to remove ourselves from, working at home. So it kind of has the best of both worlds.
Yeah, and it's gorgeous there. What kind of work do you guys do at Idea Lab, actually?
So, speaking of the history, when Jack founded back in '96, which, if you recall, that was the, kind of the beginning of the dot-com
Yeah,
boom era. And when I left New York City and joined Jack, I basically brought, web design and development, and, we didn't call it digital back then. It was just electronic communications or web design. And, slowly we kind of integrated that into the business. And then obviously with mobile technology changing the way people communicate and navigate, that has really become our business. And I'd say we have like a 70-30 split of digital to traditional
yeah.
communications. So our focus now is digital first, mobile first, and then everything else kind of falls in line behind that based on the client's needs.
So this podcast, the whole focus of this show is story, and I found I see kind of an interesting story all around with you guys, but I was really curious to hear how you think story factors into your client relationship or into the work itself. Yeah, any thoughts on that?
Uh, my personal story or our personal
Well,
stories,
yeah,
or
if you want to go that route, that's fine. And I was kind of approaching it more from, do you try to tell like a client story or, but it would be actually more interesting to hear how the story of you guys, you personally and the agency factors into the work you produce. If you want to go in that route, I'm happy with it.
I'll address both. You know,
Okay.
I think as far as our history and my involvement with this agency, you know, our personal passion for doing creative work, and I include my creative staff and group with that, has everything to do with the work we're producing. And it seems like every year that passes, our the verticals that we serve and the industries we serve have really started to shrink, and we're starting to become specialists within some specific industries. And I think that combination of us starting to build and find a niche in several areas, as well as our passion for just doing good work and you know, solid design and creative, allows us to be more effective for the client. And we, you know, we start to really believe in the client and their message and the story they're trying to tell. And I feel that that starts with us. You know, that starts with what we're bringing to the table. And you know, so as far as brand message and story goes, you know, for the client, you know, everyone has a very unique story, and that's job one. I mean, as you know, Kevin, you know,
Yeah.
you have to truly understand the client's marketplace. You know,
Yeah.
who they're trying to reach, and then you really have to build a media plan and a marketing plan around targeting that audience. That's going to work. You know, and of course that's tied to a budget. And then comes the you know, the creative part where you craft that message and story to really reach that audience to drive response for that client. And I think the one game changer, you know, is now that we can truly evaluate you know, advertising and marketing
Yeah.
efforts through metrics and analytics, and now we're really held responsible. You know, it used to be you could craft this beautiful campaign and it goes up on a billboard and it shows up in print and everyone's like, oh wow, this is great, and they love it. But if the phone's not ringing or the sales aren't coming in, then you know what does it matter? You know
Yeah.
what good is it? And now I love metrics and analytics and the fact that we can actually see the results every time we launch a campaign or a sub campaign. You know, we can almost instantly measure it and see it and say, hey, it's working,
Yeah.
or it's not working as well as we thought, so we need to make some enhancements. So that's a little more biz marketing talk than story
No,
talk.
that's all
But
part of it. I mean, that's you know, I do some author coaching, and one of the things that is it's kind of at the forefront of that is getting these guys to think of that at first as a business, and then using the very same techniques that you use in marketing for a client in your own work, and measuring your metrics and your and the response you're getting to how you're marketing yourself. That's right up there at the top now. So it's interesting to see how it's evolved. And I know it's changed a lot. I mean, I've watched it change just over the past like 3 or 4 years. So how do you guys adjust when, you know, you're seeing things that worked in the past, that stuff's starting to not work now? I mean, what's the first step? And you notice it through your metrics, but what's the first step in adjusting for those changes?
you know, it's interesting you asked me this because earlier this week we attended my core staff and I attended a workshop on developing a strategic plan for 2015
Mm-hmm.
for our business and our agency. And we all almost unanimously decided that a core component to our, you know, staying viable and current is continuing education.
Yeah.
So we basically set a goal for ourselves to, for each of us or as a group, attend some sort of continuing education event, workshop, class. You know, we don't know what it's going to be yet. Once per quarter
Yeah.
next year, and you know, it's just I feel it's a worthwhile investment. So we understand what changes are coming. You know, and what technologies are are trending downward that maybe we should, push clients away from, because I think we're getting to that point with a lot of technology. There's some companies that just haven't stayed current and they're not reinvesting in their technology.
Yeah.
And when I say technology, I'm really specifically referring to digital communication technology.
Right.
So
All it takes is having a Twitter page, right? Or Twitter feed, right? That's all it takes these days. Right?
yeah, right. That's all. It depends, maybe.
Maybe, yeah.
But no, I agree with you. It's much more than that.
Yeah.
You need to have a strategic plan in place, marketing plan, and it's interesting you bring social media up because social media can do wonders depending on the type of business, but if it's not managed properly or used enough, or it could
wrong.
it may not be effective.
Yeah.
Depending on the company.
Yeah. So how do you determine that? Okay, social media plays such a huge role in everything that anytime I talk to anyone, that's the very first thing that's top of mind when it comes to a marketing plan. And sometimes I have to talk them out of some of their strategies. But, what do you do when you've got, how do you determine whether something is being effective? I know you do your metrics and measurement. When it comes to like social media, how would you determine whether that's effective? And which
Well,
challenges you be in?
so the majority of our clientele is in the B2B space.
Yeah.
So they are not using social media as much.
Right.
However, we always include it in the overall plan and strategy. And, our feeling is, and our recommendation to most of those clients is, if you're going to use it, then it's perfect.
Yeah.
But if you're not going to use it and you're not going to have conversations with your audience and your clientele, then don't bother.
I like that. I like that a lot.
It's in my opinion, a brand or a company can't just hire some social media marketing expert to manage all of it. It has to be someone that's truly inside their walls, that understands their culture and what they're selling, that has to be constantly hammering it out there. And so I don't know, that's kind of my thought. We do have some retail B2C clients, and in that case, our role in that is typically more branding their social media and giving them a strategy, and then we advise them on how to manage it.
So when you're helping them in developing their strategy, what are some basic first, let's say that I'm a small to mid-sized business and I'm trying to get my story out there. I'm brand new. I've only been around maybe a year. I'm not doing as great as I could be doing. I walk into Idea Lab and I say, here's a retainer, help me build my business. What's some basic firsts?
Well, first of all, if you walk in and say, hey, here's a retainer.
Yeah, I'm kind of waiting for those clients myself. So
Yeah, we'll be thrilled with that. It comes back to planning. The first thing we do is we perform, for lack of a better description, an audit, basically, of their current marketing program or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And that includes, their budget, what strategy they might have in place, what marketing assets, anything from print communications to digital. And we first look at that and say, okay, well, here's what they have. And then, getting back to the budget piece, we look at the budget and say, okay, they have X amount to work with for, Q1 2015 or Q2. And we have to then decide based on their audience and what media is best and what those media costs are. Yeah. And I can tell you, there have been times where we've had a prospect walk through the door or we've gone to them and they say, hey, we want to launch a campaign. And then, unfortunately, we look at their budget and we say it's just not viable to do that. So then we have to make a decision. Do we try to start smaller with that particular client and make it work for them, or do we walk away from them? And truth be told, there are times where we walk away because, not just because they don't have budget, but because sometimes I don't think they're believers in advertising
Yeah.
and marketing communications, and they and it's collaborative.
Yeah.
I truly believe that for us to help a company grow, they have to be involved. And I'm not saying they have to do the work, but they have to understand what it is the message we're trying to craft, and the media tactics that we might recommend and utilize to reach their audience. And if they're not a part of that, and when I say they, I'm talking about the CEO, maybe the CFO, the marketing director.
The decision makers.
Yeah, the decision,
Yeah.
the C-level folks, if they're not vested, and it's not going to work.
Right.
So that's step one, is really looking at their corporate culture, their budget, what they've done in the past, what did or didn't work, and then once we have the business side out of the way and the plan, and it's about execution. The creative has to be great. It has to be clever. In some cases, and in most cases, they have to be willing to take a risk with that message, or the tactics involved. And it's differentiate or die.
Yeah. You
So.
you mentioned risk, and that's one of those key words that comes up in a lot of conversations I have, because a lot of marketing in general is about taking a risk, especially these days. I mean, it's calculated and you can measure the results, and we're actually in a pretty cool time in which you can try something, and if it doesn't work, very quickly, and you can change direction very quickly. But if you're risk averse, it tends to work against you. Have you seen examples of anything like that in with your clients?
Where they're risk averse, or where
Yeah.
they're more willing to.
Well, actually, I'd love to hear if you've got if you've got guys who were willing to take the risk that paid off. That's an even better story. But I have personally worked with clients that wouldn't take the risk, and so the campaign just falls apart. And there's we're doing the same thing we've always done. So you ever have that happen?
Yeah. I'll start with the folks that are risk averse.
Let's do it.
So in the B2B world, why I've focused on that area, and our agency always has, is that we're in very close proximity to the
Yeah.
Philadelphia agency world, and then we're only 90 minutes south of Manhattan. And for a small agency like ours to try to go after and compete against big agencies and win retail business, it's just not realistic. So we've built this niche in the small to medium-sized, privately owned, family-owned business. Maybe they do between 20 and 50 million in gross revenue, and they have a small marketing department, or at least a marketing director. And those are the folks that I feel we really can help the most, where we can kind of become the external marketing department, and we can bring them great creative and design. And what I love about it is that, let's say it's a nuts and bolts company, where, there aren't very many creatives that are interested in making nuts and bolts sexy and interesting. And that's what we're trying to bring, is kind of some of the retail sexiness of advertising to that B2B industrial and manufacturing world. And our clients love that, I mean, they love the fact that we're doing something creative. I mean, it's still, the message is, true to their brand and their products, but we make it look good.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to, so those folks, when it comes to risk, I would say they typically are a bit risk averse.
Yeah.
Because they're in their world, they can't go to the nuts and bolts convention with something that's just way, way out there and off the mark. They kind of have to settle somewhere. If the risk factor is a scale of 1 to 10, and 10 being the highest risk, they usually settle in the 6 to 7 range.
Yeah, yeah,
As
yeah.
to where they fall. Now, it just so happens we're currently in the fledgling stages of launching a new athletic apparel brand, and in kind of a growth area of the sport of lacrosse, since it's the fastest growing sport in the country currently. And we're, speaking of risk, we're working with some investors that are launching this new brand behind one of the biggest names in the sport. And while it's not, mainstream like the NFL or Major League Baseball or the NBA or one of those leagues, uh, it's pretty exciting for us to be involved in that type of retail launch. And I would say they're taking quite a bit of risk, and that's exciting,
Yeah.
because they're getting involved in a sport that's growing in our country, and they see a captive audience and a rich market, and they're going after it.
Yeah.
And we're excited to be involved with that.
That seems like the kind of thing that would be exciting as an agency about your size too, because it's so many times. So I worked with a ton of agencies, and uh, almost across the board, the majority of their clients tend to be industrial. Like, especially here in Houston, it's all oil and gas. It's in manufacturing, we do a lot of manufacturing stuff. So some of the stuff just can't be made sexy, and any more so than it is, I guess. But doing something like with anything sports related would be fun, I think, for
Yeah,
small to mid-sized agencies.
it's a refreshing change for us, and I just returned from a location photo shoot for that company, and we're just again, we're just getting rolling with it, but we're shooting to have the website and a launch, kind of a soft launch end of this year, full launch next year. So
Very cool.
yeah.
When it comes to building a brand for a company, what are the sorts of things you start with?
Well, I'd like to overcomplicate it, but the reality is I think it starts with uh, that that client having a business plan,
Yeah.
and a real plan, and then it starts with us believing and understanding
Hmm.
in what it is they're trying to accomplish. And the exciting thing is when you're involved on the ground level is that you can help shape that identity. And I think it starts with a great mark, a great name,
Hmm.
and a great brand icon that can drive it, visually, and then a creative platform that everything's built on. So they need some sort of key message that they're going to carry through, not only their advertising but just through their day-to-day culture of their company. And that's what's great about our business is in some cases we get to completely rebrand and recast,
Yeah.
a company. Sometimes we get to start from scratch,
Hmm.
and those are always a lot of fun. And I think what's nice with kind of that B2B world that we mostly live in is, our clients aren't, here one year and gone the next. I mean, most of our client relationships go back to when we started, and the new clients are all referrals from those clients.
Yeah.
So we're in it for the long haul.
Right.
And certainly companies, every so often make a decision like, hey, we need to refresh, we need to go with something different. And it's not even necessarily like they're going to make a change because they didn't like who they were working with. They just feel like they need to make a change.
Yeah.
And we're the recipient of that, where we gain a new client because they decided to make a change. And in other cases, we've done work maybe for a company for 10 years, and they say, hey, you know what, we need fresh ideas and we're going to move on. But that's rare for us, though.
Yeah.
Most of our clients have hung in there, and then every year we're trying to bring something new, whether it's new technology, a new method of reaching their audience. We're trying to always keep it fresh.
So you guys are proactive about coming to the client with new ideas or new innovations then.
Yeah, and I'll give you a specific example. So, as you're probably aware, a few years ago, the trend in fluid and responsive websites kind of took hold because everyone's using, smartphone browsers and tablets. And, how annoying is it when you go and you try to like navigate any website and you're using your thumb and your, finger to enlarge the screen and view it, and you're trying to rotate it and the browser doesn't catch up. And, as an example of bringing new technology to the table, our methodology as a digital agency is, mobile first. Always think mobile first. How's the user going to view this on that smaller browser, and what's that user experience going to be like? And my team, Kevin Blue is our web development director, and Jessica Baskin is our lead user interface designer and graphic artist. And the two of them have taken that very seriously and really gone back to school on using that mobile first methodology for pretty much everything we're looking at. And so I would say that's what's hot now. Next year something could come along and change all of that, and we have to. That's where the continuing education comes into play, and we've got to keep ourselves viable and fresh.
You have to start designing for Google Glass next year.
And you might be right.
So, what do you think is what's a tale of one of your biggest success stories? Let's limit it to your tenure here. What do you think has been one of the biggest success stories for Idea Lab?
Wow, that's a tough one.
Okay, what's the biggest failure then?
We'll start with the success story.
Okay.
Wow, we've worked on so many exciting things.
That's a good sign then, that you have so many things that you can't narrow down what the biggest success was.
Yeah, I would say, getting back to the athletic apparel company, and more specifically this lacrosse brand. This will actually the brand I was referring to is called Casey Powell Lacrosse that we're working on currently.
Yeah.
But prior to that, we had marketed or branded and launched a company called Mesh Lacrosse that we actually are a part investor in. And it was about 2 years ago to date almost that we launched that small brand of apparel and the uniform brand, and that business has seen steady growth. And I think I'm citing that as an example, not because we were a part of it, but I think it was an interesting case study of like using a lot of the things we've learned over the years, whether it's mobile, search, email marketing, social, e-commerce, and combining all those worlds to launch a brand from scratch. And then we've seen it profit in a very short period of time. And, so that's one example. Another example of a huge success story was about 4 or 5 years ago, we were hired to brand and kind of recast and relaunch a company called Combat Medical Systems, based in North Carolina. And that was started by some former combat medics that served for our military. And it's a great story of innovation where these folks saw a problem in the workplace, literally on the battlefield, of
Hmm.
how they were treating wounded soldiers, and they needed to keep mortality rates down and find better ways to stabilize the wounded and get them into proper care quickly while they're under duress. And obviously this is a touchy subject we hear a lot about. So to be involved with a company that's producing innovative medical products for folks that are defending our country is pretty exciting to
Yeah.
be involved with. And we kind of help them get from out of the small business startup realm more into the corporate zone. And now we are actually kind of simplifying matters, and we've actually just rebranded, and it's another launch we're currently working on. So big, exciting things expected from them in the next few months.
Yeah, I jumped over to their website to check them out while you were talking, and I half of what I'm seeing scares the crap out of me, actually.
Yeah, it can be gruesome, but it's just the reality of
It
of,
is, yeah.
of,
And
of war, and they're filling a purpose to hopefully get troops home sound and healthy and
yeah.
alive.
So do you guys ever do you play any role in the ideation of product or developing anything like that?
Yes, in some cases, but it's usually superficial.
Hmm.
Most of the clients that are, product based, not service based, they have product designers and a team
Yeah.
in place, and then they usually come to us to brand and market it. But oftentimes we can be involved in the process of naming the product, branding the product itself,
Yeah.
and so yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So yes,
so,
yeah.
yeah,
That's actually very cool because product marketing is such, or well, development anyway is such it's a fascinating field, and I don't know that there are a lot of agencies out there that get to participate on that level. So it's interesting that you had at least some role in that.
yeah. We have a fair amount of experience specifically with medical
Yeah.
devices,
Did you
products,
create this
and
tracheotomy tube thing that's scaring the crap out of me right now?
uh, no. No. Uh, and if that thing is being used on you, you're having a very bad
You're
day.
having a yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say.
No, but this is probably the second or third client in the past 10 years that we've had that has been in, a very exciting space of,
Hmm.
of bringing, new medical technology to market. And we've had the good fortune to help, some of those companies
Yeah.
brand and really, in most cases, we're coming in where they're kind of making that push to go from maybe, you know, several $1 million in sales to, tens of millions of dollars. And that's
Yeah.
a fun place to be in as a partner,
Yeah.
you know.
That's very cool. Okay, so we're pushing the 40-minute mark. We're getting close. So I wanted to ask you finally what you saw as the greatest learning experience in your time there. And it doesn't have to be a failure, by the way. And everyone always jumps straight to that. And I like to try to keep things positive. But if it is a failure and you have a comeback story, I'm fine with it. But what do you think has been the biggest learning experience since you guys have since you've been there?
I would say, and I wouldn't say it's failure, because I would say the dealing with uh, the fallout of the recession
Oh yeah.
and the real
You mean
world.
2008 happened for you too?
Yeah, and I think they were just, I'm a glass is half full person, and
Yeah.
I really feel that it was a great thing for me and for Idea Lab We learned so much going through that experience because basically what happened is as we all know, marketing is usually one of the first budgets to be cut.
That's right. Yeah.
And it didn't happen all at once. I would say it started in '07 and then finished somewhere around 2010 for us, like basically where we saw, you know, some companies really hanging on because they realized like, hey, we have to continue to promote our products and services. And Idealab's a huge part of that. So we need to keep them in the fold. So the budget started getting cut and we started having to sacrifice certain forms of media. And that was hard to deal with. But I'd say over that 2 to 3 year span, uh, we we saw a lot of accounts just disappear because the companies either went out of business or they just couldn't weather the storm or they were acquired or and typically most of it was acquisitions. And when the acquisitions happened, there were existing relationships. So anyway, long story short, uh, we had to make decisions for our own small business, and we had to be smart with what we did financially to stay afloat and
Yeah.
stay in business. And I'm not afraid to admit it was a really hard time emotionally. It was hard to come into the agency every day and keep people motivated and want to continue to do great work because there were layoffs. And we had gone from a company of about 17 employees, and by around 2010 we were down to about half of that.
Oh, wow.
And I'm proud to say we've retained that core team, and we're kind of slowly rebuilding, but it's like what was the Bionic Man, Steve Austin?
Yeah.
It was like we're better, stronger, faster. We just we're doing things right, and we're doing them with limited resources, and everyone's happier than ever as far as
Yeah.
our own team goes. We're doing the same amount of work, if not more. So it was eye opening. We realized like, we can do this,
Yeah.
and we don't need a small army to do it. And the other piece of that, we also learned to use technology and software to our advantage, because as we as as we lost personnel and decided not to replace them, we were able, through using certain types of software programs to run the business, we were able to improve processes and just become more efficient. And I think, and I should have said this in the beginning when we were talking about being located on Main Street in Morristown, New Jersey, is that what I love about our personal story is that we're truly trying to bring like a Madison Avenue quality of creative and design and work to Main Street.
Yeah.
And we often hear about Main Street to Wall Street and vice versa, and and I just think that's what's great and exciting about our business. Is that we're just this little agency we could be on any Main Street
Yeah.
in any town USA. But if you do things right and you focus and you're driven and you have passion for what you do, you can succeed, And I think that kind of defines who we are as a small company.
Well, I can't think of a better way to wrap it all up than that. And I can speak from personal experience. You're in a beautiful location. I want to live there. And ever since we got back, my wife has been talking about possibly the people that she trained with. She's like, man, I wonder if they'd be hiring. So,
Right.
so yeah. Well, so thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I know you're pretty busy, but I'm glad we had a chance to chat. I'm really glad I decided to just go up and knock on your door, because that was a great experience. And hopefully next time I'm in the area, I'll be able to drop by again. I'll just say hello. We'll get a cup of coffee.
That sounds great. And if I find myself in Houston, or we'll get together.
You just let me know. I know a couple of choice spots in Houston. So, All right. Well, we've been talking to Jay Winkler of Idea Lab Digital, and you should definitely go check him out at idealabdigital.com, where you can learn a lot more about their work and what they're up to. They got a blog there you can check in on and follow. So thanks a lot, Jay, and hang out. I'm going to hit stop on the record, but you and I can chat for just a second longer, and everyone else can be jealous.
Sounds great. Thanks,
All right.
Kev.
All right. Take care, everybody. Well, that was Jay and me, and man, I had a great time talking to him because I gotta tell you, I kind of got a little nostalgic about that place while I was there. It was like coming home again for me in a way, because I grew up in a small town in Texas, and it was nowhere near as quaint as Moorestown. But there was a real energy to that place that I just loved. And there's a real energy to Idea Lab Digital. Those guys, and I only met Jay, and so I'm going to be fair here, but the place itself had a sort of vibe to it that I really dug. So if you're in the market for some marketing, and you don't necessarily have to be in the New Jersey area, you can be practically anywhere, I'm sure, but if you're a small business or a mid-sized business and you need some help with building your brand, or any other marketing need, maybe you're one of those companies that had an agency for a while and you're looking for a sort of a breath of fresh air, why don't you make the switch? Go on over and check out Jay and his team at Idea Marketing. Nope, did it wrong. Idea Lab Marketing. Oh man, third time's the charm. I'm sorry again, Jay. Idealabdigital.com. There we got it. I'm going to have a link to that in the show notes. So even though I stumbled through it a bunch of times, you'll get it right. So go check him out. Idealabdigital.com. You can also check me out at wordslingerpodcast.com, or if that's still kind of in the development phase, check me out at kevintumlinson.com/podcast. This week, for the past few weeks, I am being sponsored by myself. How you like them apples? Check out Citadel Omnibus, which is the collected edition of all 3 volumes of the Citadel trilogy. If you're a fan of science fiction, and I hope you are, then I think you're going to love those books. I kind of bill them a little bit as sort of Lost meets Battlestar Galactica. How about that? There's a lot of adventure in there if you dig that kind of thing, but these are character-driven stories. If you don't particularly care for science fiction, you can just pretend like you're reading something from a different era. I write strictly in character, so I've always said you can lift these guys up and put them down anywhere, and you've got the same story. So I hope you'll give it a shot, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you do, 2 things I ask. 1, let me know, and I will be so very happy to hear your comments and feedback. But 2, and this is almost more important to me, go review it on Amazon.com, because those reviews really make or break an author in his career, and I can use all the reviews I can get, especially for this new book. I'm trying to top the 120 mark for reviews as quickly as possible. So if you don't mind, if you love me, go check out the book on Amazon, read it. It's available for Kindle only for at least the next 90 days, and leave me a review once you've done it. And if you didn't like it, I'll accept your review, but I would ask, please, just as a favor, if you didn't like it, don't review it. Because the more positive reviews I have, the better off I'm going to be, obviously. And I respect your right to dislike my work, but if you're a friend at all and you just don't feel comfortable giving me a positive review, I understand. I just ask, maybe you just forget to do the review at that point. So, at any rate. All right, there's the music. It sounds great, doesn't it? Thank you so much for tuning in. Again, check me out online at wordslingerpodcast.com, where you can now leave me a fancy-dancy voicemail directly from your computer. You can always check me out at kevintumlinson.com/podcast. Have yourselves a very, very good day. Take care.
Word Slinger.